Yo, I need to talk about Codex. I've just cancelled my Claude subscription. I've signed up to the Codex Max plan, £200 a month. I've been going nuts on this all day. I've been Claude Max for about 6 months. Before that, I was on Cursor, but I've been on the $200 plan on Claude since February, and I've been going ham on it. Like, all of my work, my business, my life, everything is all done on Claude. I think that it is a tool that could be insanely useful or a massive waste of time, depending on what you do with it. I think there was a learning curve for people who weren't very technical to start using this 6 months ago, let's say. Now, these tools are way more accessible. They've got a much more user-friendly interface. You can do stuff from your phone now. And the primitive is basically that an agent has access to a file system. It can access external tools with MCP. The thing that we have now that is genuinely useful, though, is like long-running tasks. So, for example, if you haven't heard of this before, there's a thing called superpowers, which the basis of it is that it will write a spec based on the change that you want to do, whether that's a feature or an app or something that you're doing in a project. Then it turns that spec into an actual plan. Then that plan gets executed by another agent. And this has been basically the best way to use it, for example, with Claude Code. But sometimes that plan might take hours to execute, right? It could take 9 hours, it could take 20 hours, you just don't know, depending on the size of the plan and what you're actually trying to do. And the most annoying thing about this is that Claude would stop at some random point where it doesn't even need to stop because it knows the answer, but it's like it stops to stop using tokens. It's like it knows that it's on a long-running task and it stops on purpose. And unless you are doing remote control with your phone, you're not going to see that it's stopped. And especially if you're running multiple sessions like this, you're just not going to see all these points where it's going to stop unless you're at the laptop. And I never hit my Claude weekly limit until I tried to use Fable, and then it just fucked my limit in one day. And then the only other time where I think it genuinely did use the limit in a useful way was when I started using remote control. Because all of these long-running processes that got stopped at random little checkpoints, I could keep them going without being at the laptop. And this way of working has just become the way that I work all the time now. So in the morning, I will spend about 20 minutes, whatever project I'm working on, I will run a skill called Project Status, which looks at the goal of the project, it looks at any open PRs, it looks at any tasks. If you're kind of new to using these tools like this, having a task manager attached with an MCP, like having Todoist linked to Claude or Codex, is probably the first thing that I would do, so that you can just create a backlog of what needs to be done. And then having a skill which can read the tasks from this project and differentiate between what tasks it can do versus what it needs you to do. So agent tasks versus human tasks. So if I'm working on a project, my workflow in the morning is to open that folder, go on terminal, go on Claude Code, run the skill Project Status, look at what needs to be done, and then once it knows what it needs to do, depending on what tasks need to be done, I may do one session to run them or multiple sessions to run them, and then have them all with remote control enabled. Depending on what they're doing, they could take any amount of time. Could take 3 hours, could take 3 minutes. So being in front of your laptop for that type of thing is just not required. Testing what you've done, that requires the laptop. But what I found is that a lot of things that I was working on, say for example with websites, I would do that bit of work in the morning, figure out what's important to do, start all the tasks, and then just go about my day. Go for a walk, go get a coffee, and then my phone just gives me a notification when I need to approve something. And a lot of times it doesn't really need my input, it just does ask for it. And this is again this thing where it just stops. I don't know why it just stops. I don't want it to stop. I want it to just do it, and I'll just check it at the end. A lot of times you're not even really steering these long running tasks. You are really only checking what it's done at the end. And now I just have my laptop always turned on, 24 hours a day running stuff. I've been using ChatGPT on the $20 plan. I've never tried to get a higher plan. And I've only ever really used Codex for code review. So I use Claude Code mainly for writing the code, generating the code, and then Codex for reviewing the code. I've always had enough limit on there with the $20 plan, but I started trying to do stuff with long running tasks using goals on Codex and then trying to use remote. Now remote on Codex is just insanely good you can basically control your entire laptop from your phone and also use your voice. And I don't think there's anything like it that exists right now, but the level that this thing can operate at is unbelievable. The work that it can actually do. I've had this thing running all day. I'm going to check what limit I'm at the moment. So I just signed up to the 200 plan, and I have been going nuts on this today with multiple things. I've had probably 10 to 20 threads running continuously all day, and I've got 77% left of my weekly usage limit. Today was a bit of a over the top kind of thing, but that kind of lets me know that if I was to run it like that 5 days a week, I could. I just want people to start using Codex because it's insanely good. I feel like Claude was really the OP, but I just find that there's so much less to think about with Codex. It just kind of does it. It does these long running tasks. It doesn't ping me all the time. I can do stuff with my voice. I can just describe what I want. It can start new sessions. So for someone who isn't used to configuring harnesses and running Claude code in the terminal, connecting MCPs and doing all this stuff, Codex makes it really simple. And the work that it can do is insanely powerful. Like if you're just, even if you're not coded and you just want it to do admin work, stuff in the browser, filling out forms, researching stuff, writing plans, working on spreadsheets, making slideshows, any of that stuff, it's going to absolutely crush it. And I think even on the £20 a month plan, you can actually get quite a lot done. It's only when you start using Codex to generate code, using the browser a lot, using a lot of computer use, maybe testing what you've worked on, then you are using more tokens. But I've literally cancelled Claude. I've closed my server that was using NanoClaw because I just leave my laptop running and I just have it on remote and I can just talk to it. You can literally have like a phone call with everything that it's doing and just be like, yo, what happened with that project? Is that done yet? And what's the status on this? Okay, that sounds good. Can you send that to this person on WhatsApp? It's like you're just directing something which can actually do work without that many technical things to think about. Like, for example, if you try and create a new session remotely using Claude Code, you need to be running Claude Code server. Like you've run the command Claude remote control in terminal to be able to add a new session in that directory. In Codex, you don't have to do any of that shit. You just have it open. You can open any folder on your laptop and just start running it. Start running 5 sessions. You can just open any folder and be like, yo, start 5 sessions, testing this feature from different angles, test them all in the browser, tell me which one works the best. You can't do that easily with Claude. I'm not saying that Codex can do stuff that Claude won't, but it's more accessible. It's easier to use. And it's insanely easy to use. And if you've used Claude, you can ask Codex to just look at the Claude MD files that you have set up and then make equivalent in the structure that Codex prefers. So for example, asking it to read the Claude MD and then create an agents.md. And a little tip that I'll just leave you with is if you're using superpowers, a lot of times you would have one session to do the spec and the writing of the plan, and then you would create a new session using a work tree to actually execute the plan. That's something you would have to do manually normally. Codex can just do that. So the first time I got it to do that, I said, why don't you just add this to your memory that this is how I want to use this every time. And now every time it writes a spec and writes a plan, it knows that I want to create a new session. And it's just a little step there that doesn't need my input once I'm ready to execute a plan. That alone was saving me anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes every day anyway, plus not really having to check in on it doing that. So it saves time. It genuinely does save time. And as far as I can tell, the quality of GPT 5.6 is up there with Opus 4.8. I can't see any difference. And if anything, I prefer GPT. It just gets the job done.